The sun was barely up over Redwood City when Ethan Walker walked into the steel and glass headquarters of Novatech Solutions. He had been in California for half a year, trying to bury the dust and memories of the small Wyoming town he grew up in. He didn't expect anything from the past to follow him here, not in a world of deadlines, elevators, and people who barely looked up from their screens. He stepped out of the elevator onto the 28th floor and froze. A woman was approaching from the opposite end of the hallway. She moved with a sharp confidence, heels clicking against the marble floor, brown hair tied in a tight ponytail, eyes focused and unreadable. The new senior analyst. He had heard she was good. Too good. The kind of person who didn't miss a detail. Their eyes met for a second, and for reasons he couldn't explain, irritation sparked. She didn't smile. He didn't either. "You're blocking the hallway," she said evenly. "You're already getting on my nerves," he replied. She brushed past him with a sigh. Great. One of those guys. And that was how their story began. Not with recognition, not with nostalgia, not with love, just rivalry. From that day on, Ethan and Ava Carter fought over everything. Who had the better analysis? Who found the error in the system first? Who got the bigger praise in meetings? They sat across from each other during presentations, like two warriors waiting for the smallest weakness to attack. She challenged his ideas. He challenged her numbers. Every conversation felt like a competition. Neither wanted to lose. Their co-workers whispered about it. If those two could ever stop fighting, someone muttered one afternoon, they'd run this whole department. But no one believed they would ever work together. Until the rainy Monday when their boss, Ms. Harper, called them both into her office. She didn't waste time. "I don't care if you two hate each other," she said while adjusting her glasses. "You're both leading the Benson Systems merger together. Same deadlines, same office. If you fail together." Ethan blinked. Together? With her? Ava's mouth dropped. "Ms. Harper, that's not—" "Dismissed," Harper said, pointing at the door. They left the office like two people walking to a battlefield. At first, working together was awful, annoying, exhausting. The arguments were constant. Ava rearranged documents he had spent hours organizing. Ethan edited her emails because they weren't clear enough. They bumped shoulders passing in the office, competed over who stayed later, and even fought over whose laptop was faster. But something happened in the late nights. Something small. Quiet. Something they didn't talk about. One evening, long after everyone else had gone home, Ava let out a rare laugh, soft and genuine, when Ethan told a story from his college years. He turned his head, surprised by how warm the sound was. Later, she sat beside him while they outlined part of the merger. She leaned closer without realizing he didn't move away. The more they worked together, the more the fighting softened into debates. Then conversations. Then confessions about life, family, stress, dreams. Ethan started noticing how she bit her lip when she was deep in thought, how she moved her hair behind her ear when reading numbers. Ava began noticing how he tapped his pen when nervous, how he smiled with only one side of his mouth. There was something familiar about her, something he couldn't place. But he didn't understand it until the night everything changed. It was past 10 p.m. They were finishing the final stages of the merger presentation. Ava stood from her chair, stretching after hours of sitting. She slipped off her blazer, leaving only a sleeveless shirt. Ethan looked up, and his heart stopped. There on her left shoulder was a small crescent-shaped birthmark, a mark he had not seen for nearly 20 years. His breath caught. A dust-covered backyard flashed through his mind. A little girl laughing as she climbed a tree. Two children promising never to leave each other. A girl named Evie Carter. He stared at the mark, emotions crashing through him. It couldn't be. Not in this city. Not in this company. Not after all these years. Ava noticed him staring. "What? Do I have something on my shoulder?" he whispered. Evie, she frowned. What did you call me? Ethan stood, his voice trembling slightly. That mark on your shoulder, the little crescent. You had it when we were kids. Back in Wyoming. Your name was Evie Carter. You moved away suddenly when we were 10. Her hand slowly rose to her shoulder, touching the mark like she hadn't thought of it in years. Ethan, she whispered. Ethan Walker. He nodded, and her eyes filled with tears immediately. For a moment, neither moved. Neither spoke. They just stood there, letting 20 years collapse between them. Then Ava covered her mouth with her hand. I can't believe this. I spent years wondering what happened to you. My parents moved without warning. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Ethan swallowed hard. I looked for you for months. You were my best friend, my first crush. You just disappeared. A soft cry escaped her. I thought about you all the time. He stepped forward, barely breathing. She stepped closer too. And suddenly they were in each other's arms, holding on like they were afraid the universe would separate them again. From that night, everything shifted. The rivalry evaporated. The tension turned into something deeper, warmer, older than both of them knew how to explain. Work became a quiet background to their rediscovered bond. They spent lunch breaks together, walked out of the building at the same time, found themselves lingering in each other's presence. Weekends became coastal drives, movie nights, long talks about childhood memories they both thought they'd forgotten. Ava remembered the tree they used to climb Ethan, remembered the old wooden swing behind her house. They remembered promising at 8 years old that one day they'd grow up and stay together forever. Life pulled them apart. Fate pulled them back. The merger project succeeded beyond expectations, and by then everyone in the office knew they were more than co-workers, but they didn't care. Ethan only cared about the woman who held his past in her eyes. Ava only cared about the man who felt like home even after 20 years. 2 years later, on a warm summer evening, Ethan took Ava back to Wyoming, to the same backyard where they carved their initials into an old tree. The fireflies glowed like tiny lanterns in the dusk. Ava ran her fingers over the bark. I can still see it, she whispered. E plus E. Ethan dropped to one knee. She gasped. Ava, Evie, you were my first love. You're my last. I don't want to spend another day in this life without you. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Yes, she breathed. 1,000 times. Yes. They married the next spring in a small ceremony overlooking the Wyoming fields, the exact place where they first fell in love as children. Ava walked down the aisle in a simple white dress. Ethan could barely breathe looking at her. When she reached him, she whispered, We found each other again. Ethan smiled, his voice soft. We always would. And just like that, the childhood promise came true. 2 hearts separated by time, but destined to return to each other, exactly where their story began.